Hello, Troon. I think Troon has checked in. Troon, kama uko on, please unmute your mic.
Hello, guys.
Karibu sana Troon.
Yeah, so I just figured out I cannot share my screen with my Linux box. So you guys will give me like a second. I get another box as well here, so that at least I'll have something running and I can be able to share my screen.
Sure thing, no problem.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, as Troon is setting up his box, let me do a small introduction about the Troon Ombagi. Now, Troon Ombagi has been a cybersecurity practitioner for many years. I knew that guy back in 2012, 2013, or 2014 during the first Africa Hackon conference, and he was one of the top uh, runners-up in terms of wireless hacking at the CTF that was conducted during that time. And he has gone ahead to earn his offensive security certified professional certificate and also advanced to an offensive security certified expert certificate. And he has developed several tools during his work career, and he's a cybersecurity analyst and instructor at the Strathmore University. So we are glad to have him teach us SQL injection, and he'll take us through the manual process of performing SQL injection for web-based systems. And if you have any questions, also put them on the side chat so that you can be able to respond to them. Na karibuni sana. So please also share so that if there are other guys who are interested in joining in, they can also join in. Karibuni. Cheers. Let's have fun.
So as we get this working, rather, I'm gonna join with another second machine, and sorry, I'm not feeling very well. So ideally, I'll be taking you through general discussion about SQL injection and basically how I kind of hunt for them and how I kind of put strategies in exploiting SQL injection. So that's basically high level talk. It was a very short notice. I didn't prepare too much, and I figured out um, with a short notice, there's no need to put too much pressure on the theories and whatnot. Maybe just talk about what is SQL injection. And Michael was kind enough to tell me that you already have covered most of this stuff. So in the previous session, that is. So for the new guys, no worries. We'll kind of talk about on a high level what to expect. And I do have a short lab here. I mean, it's a public one. You can also get, but I assume after this, Mike will include this as part of maybe a reference to whatever demo we'll be doing here and there. And feel free to ask questions. Make it as interactive as possible. I think we are a few guys, so this will be much easier. So this will be much easier. There's a message from Meshach, mentioned a couple of things which we could have done, but hey, I figured out that will take us too much time. So the good thing is we'll be trying and doing this. We will be doing this manually. So I can do it from Windows as well. It's just to help you understand what goes on when we talk about when we talk about SQL injection. So we kind of like to use SQL map. I love it as well. It's an awesome tool. Then again, at some point you have to be creative, incorporate a couple of techniques here and there, and prepare for cases where maybe you might have a firewall and things of this sort. And especially for the guys who play back bounty, for instance, stuff, and you're here, you probably will have to see a couple of things here and there as well. All right, I do have my other Windows machine on, so I'm gonna join with the Windows machine. So we'll miss a couple of things which I wanted to show us from my Linux box, but we're gonna figure out a way to do it as we move on. I'm just trying not to waste too much time doing the setup and whatnot. But hopefully, Mike will give me more session so that we can go over this as much as possible. So I do have one machine on the network. We're gonna have a look at it, then take you through the process of what to expect when you're testing for SQL injection. Look at different behaviors. So this is gonna be a short call rather. Then the next session we're gonna have more organized kind of flow, and maybe even share some things that you need to have before we have the call. So give me a second to join with the other machine so that guys will be able to see a couple of things from my side. But that said, ideally, things. Oops, sorry, I've been like talking to myself all this time. Pole sana. All right, so thank you, Shell. So what I was explaining is I doubt you will get access to my Windows box. I'll give it a shot. Let me try if I can present. Then I'll go over this again. So says I can share my screen. This is the error I'm getting. I'll give it a shot. See if I can try and log in from another browser. Because this could have make my work much easier. So give me a sec again. Let's see. I'm gonna try this from Firefox. It's a Kali Linux thingy. I don't know. So. All right, this kind of worked. So. So I figured out it's working. So give me a second. I turn off a couple of things here so that I don't get the lag. Were you able to see my screen? Hello, guys. Are guys able to see my screen? Hello. Hello.
Yeah, we
Can we?
can say construct.
Oh, all right. Very well. So I do have Linux machine over here. I hope guys can see. Can you be able to see my like my virtual box? Hello?
Yes, yes, can see.
All right, great. So we can proceed. So ideally, here I do have the box. It is a Linux box, and the API it's 192. I think it's 0.1. Let me see. It's 104. Simple website. So this is done by Good Buddy, Pentester Lab, and I think it's as simple as something that we can perhaps have a look at it. So whenever I'm looking for SQL injections. There are a couple of things that I do put into mind. So one, this is like we're jumping into like I don't know 4 or 5 steps when you've done a couple of things. As I was explaining, there are some tools that I recommend you have a look at. So one is called sorry, I'm gonna look at that later on. So one is called EMAS. I dropped this on the chart. So EMAS is a nice, good tool. It's done rather developed by OWASP. I think it's one of the contributors. I'm not sure who is, but it does a very good job. So ideally, you can run this from Docker, or you can install this straight if you have Go installed. Fun enough, I think I did this with my Kali Linux, and I did get it running, which is great. So have a look at it. Very interesting tool. You'll definitely love it. The other tool is called HTTP probe. So this was what I was copying for you. So you don't have all the time to go through all this, and you'll pardon me for that. I'll drop this on the chat again. You can have a look at this. It's called HTTP probe. So ideally, the assumption here is a website like this, you've done like the basic enumeration, and you've let's say found a couple of services running and things of the sort, and you want to identify which of these services are running. So I'm coming from a high level kind of view. So if I was to make this a little bit kind of interesting, so let's say you have a target.com, and this is part of your enumeration. So looking at this from a pen test point of view, or a case where maybe you're doing, let's say, a red team exercise, you need an initial access, or ideally a case where you're having this as part of a scope in a back bounty program. So you'll need to do a couple of things. So as I've mentioned, these tools that I've mentioned, you can have a look at them. I think they do have some nice flow that you can follow and be able to identify how to use them. But ideally, I'll give you a hint. So one, you might want to find other subdomains under this. So DNS Gen is a nice tool that does that, which is part of what I've included here. So DNS Gen, it generates a combination of domain names from a provided input, and then, of course, tries to pick some known, let's say, commonly used words for subdomains, and it generates this for you. So a good example would be something like whatever they've provided here. So I can use that as an example. So if you had something like, let's say, target, we can do echo target.com, and we're going to pipe this to Ds Gen. I hope I have it installed here. DNS Gen, sorry. I do have it installed, and say it's coming from the terminal, the input, so don't expect an input. And this is what we get. So something like this, it will start like, quickly generating some, subdomains for you. So you're increasing your attack surface. So ideally, this is a very nice tool to have. So let's say you've done something like this, and you find some nice subdomains. You'll want to go further and find, what kind of services are they running. And because we're talking about web backend, find web services. So ideally, they're nice techniques. So I don't know if I have one here in the history, so you can have a look at. Let me see history. I hope I won't be able to expose too much. I do have a couple of examples here. Well, so this is a nice example. I'm going to have a look later on. I'm going to show you in a second. So ideally, we do have AMAS as well. So let me check AMAS. So with AMAS, we do have a couple of examples we can have a look at. Again, give me a second. I remove a couple of interesting things here so that don't have to see all my nice stuff. So I do have interesting stuff on my on my examples, which I think I'll need to remove them. So give me a sec. All right. So I'm going to use CNN as an example. Maybe, well, not doing anything nasty, just show you how you do the enumeration bit, because you can't do anything interesting if you don't do a proper enumeration. So that's a good example, maybe, or rather, sorry, I'll give you a good example of what to expect whenever you're doing this. So very first, I'm just getting 3 commands ready for you. So I do have AMAS. Let me see what else I can do with this. So I'm gonna combine this with HTTP probe. Test it here, then explain what that means, rather what the command output is, so you get a good understanding of what this is all about. So this is beyond doing something like, let's say, a CTF. It's more than that. So these skills you can use for an active engagement. Sorry for the background noise. Well, I think I do have enough examples right now. And so thank you for being patient. So I do have a good example to show you. So this case, this is gonna generate a couple of domains and give us whatever is active. So I'm using CNN as a target. Do an enumeration, brute force, and save the output in cnn.txt. So this definitely takes some time. So it takes a while. I mean, goes for a long time. And when it's done, I do pass this output to what we'll call HTTP probe. HTTP probe, you can give it the ports that you want. So ideally, you have port 80, port 81, 3000, 3000 HTTPS, so forth and so on. And you can keep on adding other interesting ones that you can find if you do understand your target as well. So if there's something that is missing here, so for example, if you're interested with port 9090, let's say HTTP port 9090, HTTPS, let's say port 9090 as well, use it here. So the challenge that we get is once you've done this and you do have a target, so this is going to take time actually. So I wish I could have stopped. I don't know if it does produce anything. Let me see. Well, here we go. Can guys see my output? So
Yes.
great. So from just having CNN.com, we have elfmaker.cnn.com, spoil, and so forth and so on. Like the list can keep on going on. It takes time because it's doing a brute force. You have like a word list and so forth and so on. And the point here is if you're going to do something like, let's say, a pen test, you want to increase your chances of getting something vulnerable. So if you just let's say like focus on cnn.com, definitely you're gonna miss a couple of interesting things because this is like the main website, and definitely they do have some maybe monitoring in place, some firewalls and whatnot, and you might kind of miss interesting stuff. Like this is always maintain things of the sort. What you want to do is find something that perhaps guys have missed. Maybe they had something like quiz.cnn.com, maybe it's active, and nobody no longer uses it. Maybe something like forums, potential places you can get SQL injection, so forth and so on. I'm gonna stop this because this is gonna take time and this is beyond the scope of the talk. I've stopped that. You get a nice detail about the records discovered about 116, so forth and so on. It does a very nice technique of discovering this. One of the ways which, again, it's beyond what we're doing, but I kind of like, I'll show you here. I like using Shodan for that, shodan.io. Another nice technique that people perhaps don't know you can use. Let me log in with my Gmail account. So again, whenever I'm looking and hunting for again targets that I can include for my scans and whatnot, I like doing something like let's say give me a target. So I don't know. I'll go with something like Facebook.com. So if I'm doing a bug bounty, let's say for Facebook, which you don't, because sometimes I feel like they're a waste of time. If you don't really invest some good time on this, kind of can slow you down. So here you can search, let's say for Facebook.com, and it will give you a couple of interesting stuff. So this is basically the first thing I'll do, then just go through and check and see if I'll find something unique regarding this target, then search only that specific unique, let's say, parameter. So here, I don't know if I can show you. What I'm looking at is, well, let me see, not what I'm looking for. So let me, I don't know, well, I'm lacking targets to use. Does anyone has a website or a blog that I can use for the scope? Because I don't want to search, for an active target here, or rather an existing entity, and we find things that we did expect to find on this short call. Anyone with like a blog I can use or a target I can use? All right, so here we go. So that's say I'll see if I can just pick something that I know. So like for Facebook, unfortunately, doesn't have the thing that I'm looking for. But basically what you want is to like find something unique. For example, if it's Amazon and you have the organization is Amazon, you focus and limit the search to that. Another case is if you find something like SSL and you have some specific company name on the SSL, you can come and search for that. So for example, let me try and show you. Let's say maybe Safaricom. So we're not doing anything naughty here. So let's say do something at safaricom.com. See if we can get a good example here. So with Safaricom, we do see some, let's see, not, these are their clients. Let's pick .co.ke. So you're probably gonna find hosts that are not supposed to be public, or hosts that are not supposed, like you're not supposed to get with your normal scan. So here I do have a couple of output. Let me see. Well, I do have this one here, organization. It's Safaricom PLC. So I can use that, come back here and increase your scope, right? Like see if you can get, let's see. So with this scan, like give me any SSL certificate that is public that does have safaricom.plc. So with this, chances are you'll get hosts that you've never seen before. And if you're doing a test with them, perhaps it increases your chances of getting more interest in such. So like in this case, we do have 213 hosts. So you can imagine this is something interesting. Ireland, you get about 16, South Africa too. And I can guarantee you, perhaps with this kind of search, you'll get hosts that you perhaps never realized that are under, let's say, Safaricom domain and things of the sort. So that's out of the way. And if you have any question, please drop this on the chat as well. So I'm seeing Josh shared Mirai Coffee, so you can try that as well. Have a look. So this is the example I wanted to show you as well. So once you've done something like this and you do have a nice output, we do have something like, let's say, CNN.txt, cut CNN. or txt, we get something interesting down here. Very well. The next thing that you probably want to do is find which of these hosts are alive and they do have attack surfaces that we can increase in our test. So I'm gonna cut the content of the hosts that we found, which are up here, and throw this on HTTP probe and find any ports that we can find that are live on the host that we've kind of identified. So this again will take time. You run this, you finish, and get to see what interesting stuff you can find. Well, that said, the other tool that you can have a look is FAF, which is a nice one. It does content discovery quite well and does a lot of kind of interesting fuzzing, which is another tool that you must have. So fast, faster, useful. That's what FAF kind of means. I do love it. It's a very interesting one, and you cannot discover content very fast. So like if you do use something like GRB, again, this does come in quite handy. I love it. So I'm going to limit this to the scope of whatever we have over here so that you can see it in action. So we do have our host over here. We're going to see how this looks like. So let me see. This is the target. It's 104. So before you do anything, because you don't want to just like immediately start doing injection over here, excuse me, you have to find some nice, interesting injection points. So this is what we're going to do. So first thing is, let's say this has finished and you have some nice targets, because that's where like we're coming from. What I'll do is something like DRB and then just put the host, DRB, directory master, then put the host. In this case, we have the 192 and see what we get. So it's going to like discover some directories for us. And this is nice. We have like 17 directories. So FAF does some good job as well. Now let me see what we have over here. Here we go. So I'm gonna drop the URL over here. What did I do wrong? Let me see. Oops. So in this case, let me copy it again. So this is our target. There we go. And it's doing more or less the same thing, but it does some nice ways of doing it. So let's see. It has finished. It has found about a couple of directories for us. We have admin. We do have all. We do have cat, classes, CSS, footer, images, index, and show. So it has found this for us. So let's have a look. So I'm going to start with the first one. And meanwhile, this one is running. I'm going to stop. You get the point. So it has found out of the host that is it kind of identified. It found smartlink.cnn running and it's active. So I'm going to stop that. So let's focus on this. So assume this is our target. We found it alive and it's one of the subdomains and things of the sort. Let's have a look. So we do have admin, and this is a login page. So with this, whenever you get like an admin page, there are a couple of things that you want to try. And basically, you don't want to start with SQL injection, of course. So you're going to try something like admin. Just find if it's like not well done. Admin, maybe one admin, 1, 2, 3. Well, nothing interesting. So we cannot do anything interesting here, but maybe we can come back and try later on. We do have something here. And then, of course, some guys will tell you, of course, this easy way of trying to test for a simple logic with SQL injection, which is like you put a single quote or single quote, one single quote equals one. I'm going to explain this later on. This is what they call tautology. Then in the password, you can put anything. Then try it. And this one fails as well. So we do have this. The other bit is you have to like inspect the website until you find a point where you can do the injection. So we do have a website like this. Again, manual browsing is what you want to do. Then alternatively, you can use a tool like Babsuit. So Babsuit is another interesting tool that can help you identify parameters in the URL, because that's where we want to make some injections. So let me see. Okay, got some error. Not a good start, but we're going to proceed. So either way, on Babsuit, I like having some like I don't know any tool that can help me identify parameters. So one of the tools that I like, or rather plugin that I like, is called Logger or Logger Plus Plus. Is or I think it's Logger Plus. It's not Plus Plus. And when the traffic, like you just normally browse the application normally as you will do. So like you set proxy off, just browse the application, then go back and check. But for this, we're going to use our eyes and see if we're going to identify anything. So this is homepage, nothing interesting. We go to test, and we do see something here interesting. Raxcon, we do see something else. We see other pages, all this is interesting. Then the admin pages over here. So this is admin page. So with this, I know most guys will just basically put this to a SQL map and do the normal thingy, which is not usually the best way to start. So I'm going to explain a couple of things here. And of course, if you have any question, please drop it on the chat so that I can be able to answer as we move on. So when you find there's a parameter where you can maybe inject something or kind of add something on the URL. So basically, what I like to start is maybe just do a single quote and then do enter. Then use your eyes. So in this case, you find a nice error message. This is not usually the case. Sometimes you won't get anything. So that also kind of adds on to what we'll be looking at. So this is interesting. We see when we put a single quote, we get an error message. It says, you have an error. I'll zoom in for guys to read also. You have an error, SQL syntax. Check the manual that corresponds to your MySQL server, version, blah, blah, blah. Error at line 1. Interesting. So what about a double quote? Do we get anything? And yes, we do get also a problem here with a double quote as well. And that's interesting. So probably we kind of break the application in one way or the other. But here's the thing. When you get something of this sort, there are two ways to explain it. So in this case, you see ID is 1. So probably it's using integers. So this is like an integer-based injection, probably that you're going to have a look at. In some cases, you'll find something like, let's say, maybe page or blog. So I'm going to just do it manually here. Something like, let's say, page equals about. And you do the same thing and you test if it breaks or not. So for this case, this is more or less like what we'll like refer to string-based kind of SQL injection. So for this, what we have is an integer base, but we need to confirm this, right? Like we cannot just say it is, we need to find a way to confirm. So I need you to go with me because I'm explaining this like on a very basic level. So I mean, like if you've never done this before, you should follow with me. And if you have any problems or any part that you feel like doesn't make sense, please ask. So this is what we have. And I'll go visit another page, which is Raxcon. This is page 2. So page 2, we get hacker. Then we go to page 3, we don't get anything. Then let's do something. So we know basic math. 3 minus 1, we expect to get 2. And we know this is the page. And this is how we kind of confirm if the page is injectable or not. So with this case, we'll do 3 minus 1, and we do enter. And I hope guys saw what happened. Guys were able to see that, right? So we've done a simple test. This is integer based. So like we can confirm is an integer based kind of injection. So like if this was a blog or a newspaper website, I'm browsing and I see something of this sort, basically I definitely want to try that. So we know 1 looks like this. Then we know 2 looks like this, which is a hacker. Then 3 is nothing. So if we do 3 minus 1, we get 2. Sorry, 3 minus 2, we get 1, which is exactly what we expect. And if we do 3 minus 1, we get this. So literally, we know this is math. So there's somewhere this is being computed, which is interesting. So we do have a possibility of an injection. Now the question is, what happens next? Well, ideally, for most cases, for most guys who use SQL map, they know at this point, you can just drop this to SQL map and you'll be fine. So I like to explain a couple of things. So one is doing this, again, manually, sometimes it's tedious. So we need to find a way of, one, getting links with parameters. You can write your own tool. So like one tool that I like, or rather one library that I like under Python, I can explain and maybe show you later, but I feel like I'll be derailing you. Is a common one that does the scrapper. Well, I mean, do I have the name? So it's a simple scrapper. Let me see if I get it here. Let's see, Python scrapper. Let's see if we can get here. There's a library, that's what I'm looking for. It's a simple, like if you've never done it before, it just makes your work much easier. I do have a script I can show you later on. I've done it, I haven't shared it, I haven't put it on GitHub, but you can have a look at it. So let's see. Do you have anything? So this is guys that are using Beautiful Soup, not what I was looking for. Selenium, you can use this as well, not what I was looking for. And I can't remember what I have here. I think it's called Scrap. Yeah, this is what I'm looking for. Very well. So you can use this, create your own simple, nice spider, and literally this code that's here works. It works perfectly fine. So you can use this, then replace this with, let's say, the website that you're looking at, and then, excuse me, as I mentioned, I do have a flu. Sorry if my voice is not very clear. So as I mentioned, so this is what you need to install. You just do a simple script like this, put this, and you have a simple spider running. So this is as simple as this. And it can spider a website that you're looking for, then get URLs with parameters. So that's one technique of automating this. But then when you get this, how do you do your thing? So one way I like utilizing Bash and Curl is automating this kind of thing. I do have a list of payloads that I use. I'm going to share with you in a second. So this one is public. I have put it somewhere online. So I do have ls, let's cut SQL payloads. So these are my manual payloads that I use for my testing. Whenever I want to try and see if I can get, let's say, to test and see if I'll find something interesting on a URL or not. So it goes something like this. I usually do it manually. So let's have a look. I hope I won't confuse guys here. So I have a website like this. And what I'm looking at is see if I'll do something, my own injection, and get something different. So if I do this, copy this, go back here and do something like Carl, and then just paste the URL over here. And I do something like grep for, let's say, MySQL. I want to see if I'll get anything. So I don't get anything. But if we do, if we do this, there's a problem with Carl. Excuse me. So here we need to close this. Let me see. Do we get anything? Switch I. I'm not getting anything. So let me try wget. Well, first of all, let me try something here. Carl, yes, see if it works. It does work, so I wonder what's happening here. And let's try this again. We try it manually. We do like the injection over here, and we do get something. It says not found. And here we go. So this works. So you do injection. So this is what we're looking for. And you just want to find ways we can do this manually, like trigger. So the point here is if I did this and I know they're using MySQL, I'll do something like grep switch I MySQL and see if I get something. And here we get one hit. So this you need to make Cal quiet, of course, because it's making a lot of noise here. But you get the point here. We do have a hit, something of the sort. So I do have some scripts I'll share with you later on that have kind of automated this. And with a payload like this, because you do have a payload file that I use, which is this one here, I can try and say, hey, you know what? Let's cut and check the size of this file. It's what counts, which L. I do have about 600 payloads. I can try all of this and then just see how it behaves. So I can try something like for X in, or rather maybe for payload in cat, which is a SQL file. Do something like echo the payload. Let me echo the payload. Typo there. Let me use the typo, or let me fix it. So this is supposed to be payload, and we do have something like this, and I'm gonna say end, done, sorry. And this is gonna print everything. But the point here is, what if we do this and combine with this command that I've shown you earlier? What do you think will happen? So this is how I kind of do the automation, sort of. So I can copy this that I've done right now and stop that, go back. So instead of doing echo, I do the cal. So I'll do cal, do that, grab that, then do done. But this time the payload should go where I did the single quote. So that's how I definitely, so I know it's too much, but you kind of get the point. So like at this point here, this point, I'll do something like, let's say 2, then payload. And this, of course, will take time. It will run, and there you go. You get nice, you can keep on improving this. So like, you'll get nice output. Let me see if I can cut this to be quiet. Let me see, man, Carl, I think switch Q, if I'm not wrong. We can try that again. Then if you don't get it right, you can fix it anyways. Switch Q for quiet. Let's do Carl. I sometimes forget this. Let me see. So this is variables. Silent is switch S. There we go. So let's make this quiet, which is switch S. Then for every payload that we're doing, we need to maybe print it out. So we're gonna echo the payload being used. So we're gonna do something like testing. So let's show you how this kind of works. Testing payload, and I do this. Then I do percentage payload that I'm using. Then I do that. Then I do semicolon, and there we go. So this is working very fast, but you get the point. This is interesting. So like, it's running, and you can see. So like for example, this one didn't testing this payload didn't give out anything, and you can see this one kind of worked out. So like for example, this one gave me something, and this one didn't give me anything. So I'll go back, check slowly, and maybe dig in further and see if I can clean the payload and the query that is sent. So basically, that's how I kind of try and look and see if I can increase my chances of getting something, because there are too many. Another way of doing this, of course, you can try and use Babsuit. Though there's some cases where you'll get some nice challenges where you need to do another interesting stuff in place. So like in this case, I do have my, let's say, scripts, which I've done. So for example, you can have a WAF, and then if you like send in a payload, something like, let's say, single quote or 1 equals 1, for example, you should get maybe an error because it's saying something that's not supposed to be saying, things of the sort. And this is something we can talk about later on. But for now, let me just copy this and show you how I do deal with that. I've written something called ASCII to single URL encode. And looks like this. You paste your payload over here. Damn it. Supposed to be single quote, space, or space 1 equals 1. You do enter, then you get your nice payload, which you can use for your test. So that's a quick overview, definitely. I know it's a quick rush, but we're going to have a look maybe later on deeper. If you have questions and whatnot, you can always ask. But for now, we do have this target over here. We've confirmed we do have an injection. Looks like this. We've confirmed. So I think that we can try, of course. We can try a couple of things. So one, we can try something like, let's say, sorry. So we can try, we know ID equals 1. So we can try see if or 1 equals 1, then maybe comment out everything else works. And yes, it's working. So we do have an injection. Now, if you're a good student and you're following, I can explain something here. I mentioned whenever you can test for this, it means it's integer-based kind of injection. So definitely, you don't need to do the single quotes because it's integer-based. But if it was string-based, so like whenever we do this test, like whenever we've done something like this, and you want to do the injection over here, so this basic SQL statement that you add in. So if somewhere behind the code, we had, or rather behind the website, we had select maybe all from, let's say, blog, where article, maybe where ID, where ID equals, let's say, or rather in this case, I'm just writing where ID is or equals, let's say, 1. So in this case, what we're doing, or 2, we are doing our own thing. So like maybe you can even have an AND statement and whatnot. So this is what is being picked from the browser, right? And unfortunately, we don't sanitize. This is where an attacker can be able to add their own statement. So where ID equals 2, for example, where it's supposed to be that, and other things are tested, and maybe and date equals XYZ, something of the sort. An attacker is able to control this parameter because you can see it's on the URL. We can come in and now do the maybe single quote or 1. So in this case, we don't need a single quote, of course, as I mentioned, or 1 equals 1. Then we do the percentage. Sorry, pound. Excuse me. So when we do the pound, it kind of ignores anything else that is part of the SQL statement query, and we're able to control the statement. So when you put an or, it's, you know, like if this part, if it's false, this becomes a true, and you're gonna get everything. So the where clause is gonna work because you have an or. It's when I'm literally when you say bring me coffee or tea, you get the point. So whichever is available, you get it. So like in this case, if this doesn't exist, or even if it exists, and this one is also true, basically it kind of just invalidates the logic that the developer had in place. So there we have it. And I'm going to do some, or rather, the next subsequent classes, which you're going to have, I'll do some slides and share with you some code, like some vulnerable PHP code. You can host it on your environment, then we can try that together. And we can have maybe some increasing level of the attack. So like we can start with the basic things we're talking about. Of course, in real life, you don't find these things very easy like this. People have things like WAF in place, web application firewalls, and things of the sort. It makes it a bit tough and hard for you. So we're gonna look at that, and of course, look at other advanced techniques to like do this kind of thing. So this is totally basic stuff. So I hope guys can follow. Another way of commenting out, which I like, is dash dash. This will also comment out. Sometimes this will fail and we'll do dash dash plus sign, which I kind of like to do as well. And it's an interesting way of doing it. So I hope you get to understand where the injection is coming in and how we control the application. Now, that said, we're going to do a union injection here and then see how SQL map is able to do something of this sort. So let's see, because this is kind of simple one. We do have a point where we can prove it's injectable. So like if you're playing a CTF, your goal is to get shell access, definitely. If you're doing bug bounty, your case is to show the critical, effect of this kind of vulnerability to the business. So if you just share something like 1 equals 1, or sorry, or pardon me. So if you share something like 2 or 1 equals 1, then you comment out basic thing. You're gonna get some payout, but definitely you didn't show a big impact. So we should be able to maybe show a big impact on this. Can you be able to do more than this? So definitely there's something called union kind of based sort of like injection where you usually you combine these existing statement with your own, where you can create your own statement and then do another like select data from another existing database and show it here. So before we do this, a couple of things that we need to understand. One, you cannot do union select without being able to identify the number of columns that the initial statement use. So like in this case, the example of used here, it's all. So in this case, if let's say if the current let's say table being used at 4 columns, then the number of columns are 4. Your union statement must have 4 columns. Like in this case, so let's assume you had a statement like select, let's say date, select date, author, sorry for the typos, and then maybe article, or rather, yeah, so select date, author, article from blog, where this is this. So we have 3 columns. This must be part of the union select. So, but let me give you a good example. So we do have, let's say, a table here. We have table, let's say blog. And this table does have ID. It has, let's say, date, and then it has news. So maybe you have one, you have date, something like, let's say what? Oops, sorry. So you have something like, let's say, XYZ, then you have news, and the news you have maybe Ombagi. Then you have something like 2, you have ABC, and then you have True. And down here you do have another table, let's say users. And this table, it has ID, name, and you have password. And the password is maybe encrypted or hashed. So in this case, you can have maybe 10, then we have maybe admin, and then you get something like maybe password is I love hacking. Then you have 12. Then you have something like, let's say, Bob, and Bob password is I dare you. So if you're gonna do a selection, so let's assume you had a statement on a browser that says select, let's say select news and date, of course. Let's say date. Let's make this easier. Select date and news from select date and news from blog, where ID equals to something of the sort. So let's assume you have something simple. Let's keep it simple. Select that news from blog where ID equals 2. You expect to get ABC and true. And maybe this is where we have the injection. So if you're going to do a union select, you're going to do union select. In this case, it has to be 2 columns. It's a must. So in this case, we can select maybe name and password from let's say users. And in this case, if this is an injection that we had on a browser, we're gonna get interesting stuff because we can, be able to put out other interesting stuff from another DB. I mean, for another table. But the big question that we have right now, because we want to wind up here, is how do you find this exists and this exists? So this is what we're gonna do. So the first thing that we need to do for us, one, we need to find number, sorry, or rather the number, find the number, the number of, let's say, columns that are used in the initial statement. Then two, after finding the number of columns, find um, specific, or rather, let's just say, find the columns that are reflected, and we use those columns to pull data. So use the reflected, sorry for the typos, use the reflected columns to pull data from other tables. Now, there's something I'm skipping here, which I'm going to show you, which is ideally, we need to find the tables that exist, the current user, the current database, so forth and so on. But I'm trying to keep it simple as possible so that you guys can follow. So first of all, let's find the number of columns used. Then we fill in this, then see the logic that we use. So I'm going to do it here. So I'm going to do union, select, then I'm going to do 1. We get an error because the columns don't exist. The number of columns are different. So we get an error. So I'll keep on increasing this. And of course, I did another mistake, which I didn't include here. So I'll do 2 union, and let me just put it in caps so that you can see. Union select 1, then dash dash. We comment out everything else. We get an error. So here with that, where I have 1, I'll keep on incrementing this. So I'll do comma 2. I do get an error until I don't get an error. Then I do comma 3. I still have an error. So let's keep on doing this. And if you're following this, sometimes can be tedious, because what if there are like 50 columns? So you'll be tired. So I'll show you another way of doing it. So we know there are 4 columns. So number of columns used are 4. Very well. The other thing that we need to identify is, can we do something different? So let me see if I can remember doing this, because I like using this in most cases. So I'll say select 2, then order by, let's say, something like 10. Then I do dash dash. I get an error. So unknown column 10. Oh, let me see. Did I use the right word? Okay, so that's probably an error. 10 is more, so I'm assuming I'm correct. So it's more than what we expect. So let me go down, use 5, get another one, unknown column 5, select, so order by 4, and it works. So we have 4 columns. So there we go. Very a very good way of testing this. So like you can start with 50, 30, or maybe 50, 40. If 40 gives you an error, again, you keep on moving down until you don't get an error. Then if you don't get an error, increment slowly now. So like if you don't get an error at 20, keep on order by 21, 23. So in that case, it makes it much easier. I hope it's clear, guys. And if you have any question, please drop it on the chat. That'll be great. Alrighty, so there we go. Let's have a look at what we have over here. We do have 4 columns, and this is good. So once you've done order by, and you know there are 4 columns, we can go back to union, select. We do the 1, 2, 3, and 4, then dash dash, enter. In this case, we're looking for the second bit, which is find the columns that are reflected. So this is an interesting bit, because with that, we can be able to do interesting stuff. So we know column 2 is the only one that is reflected. So this is interesting. We only have 1 column. Let's see if we can make use of this. So column 2 is the only one that is reflected. We need to have some payloads. Now, the site that has interesting payloads for us is called Pentester Monkey. Pentester Monkey SQL injection cheat sheet. Let's see, so this is from MS SQL. We can do this later on. So our focus right now is MySQL. And of course, it's a good case to ask yourself, whatever you're doing right now, How can you do this? Let's say with let's say something like Oracle, MS SQL, and so forth and so on. So in this case, let's see, we can try and select version. What version of DB are we looking at? So column 2 is where we're gonna drop in the payloads as we move on and see the output. So we're using version 5163 squares. This is good. We do have some things out now. So this is the version. So this is MySQL version in use. What else can we pull? Let's check. Another payload is user. Can we tell who's the current user? Let's see. User, and the user is called Pentester Lab at localhost. Very well. So the user, we have the user can be handy because this you can try go back on the login form. If you have SSH and you're playing CTF, you have some nice pointers now. What else? So that's what you've got. Any other interesting stuff? Let's see. So here we do have some nice payloads. We can list privileges, which is what we don't want to do because of time. I'll go to database. What is the current DB that we're using? So the payload is database, the function. And the database is called photoblog. Interesting. We pick all this. So DB is photoblog. So this is basic enumeration with SQL injection. And basically now you get an idea of what SQL map does behind the scene. What else can we get? We can list databases from the system, and there are two payloads here. One is called, no, what is called? One is any DB that is above 5.0 will work with this one, or else use the one that's down here. So this is interesting because this is a select statement. Now the question is, how will this look like? How will this work with what we have at this point? I'm going to explain so that you get a good understanding and see if this will make sense to you. So at this point, we know our injection looks like ID equals something like 1. We're doing union select 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're doing dash dash. So we know we can combine this with whatever exists, but if we do have a payload like this, how can we use it? So the payload works like this. Here we can put any statement as long as we maintain the number of columns and as long as whatever we are querying at this point is 1. So we are set, we are good. So I'm gonna do schema place under 2, then from information schema.schemata, copy it, drop it after this. So this is what's going to happen. We're going to select schema name, replace the tool that is being reflected, and we're going to select this from this meta kind of data sort of. It has a schema of the DB, or rather your installation, and it knows how to pull this for us. So let's see. We can make a query, and we get it. So let's see if we're going to get anything with this. Put some space over here. Do enter, no errors, hopefully. And there we go. So we have information schema, photoblog. So definitely we do have photoblog. That's what is a DB that is currently available. If we had more than that, it could have shown us. So that's what we have. Now, let's try to see if we can list, let's say, columns, right? See if we can list columns from, let's say, existing databases. So this is the payload. It's a very long one. Let's have a look at that and see the difficulty that we can face here. So we do have select table schema, table name, column name, information schema, columns where table schema is not MySQL. And then if you're going to copy this payload, make sure you remove this quote and replace with the normal ones. So let's have a look at this. Excuse me. So it looks something like this, and we do have a problem. So I don't know, can somebody tell us what the problem might be? Who can tell us? Anyone? Because this is our injection looks like. I want to see if somebody can tell us. What's the problem there? Anyone? All right, let me tell you, and maybe I can show you. So what we have here, we can only reflect one column. So this is the problem. So how can you combine this statement, which is a big one, to fit into this case where we just have one column being reflected? Well, here's the thing that we can do. We can try and use something called concat and concatenate all this into one column, then the rest can work. So let's see. So this is what we need to concatenate and see if it's going to work for a case. So I'm going to do concat. Then with concat, I need to place all this in the concat function. Then they have to be separated by commas, which is well done. And this should work, but sometimes I like to make it more visible. I'll include my own separator as well. So I'll do something like, let's say, concat. I know the injection was single, so let's try double. Then do full colon. So we use like a nice separator because this will be concatenated all of this if this will work. If it fails, we can fix it, no problem. So I'm going to do this where we have two replaced with concat. Oopsie, select this again, and here we go. Then, of course, anything from and going down, we're going to use that as it is. So yeah, everything is fine. Select 1, 2, 3, 4, and 2 is concat table schema, table name, and column name. Then we're going to put everything else as it was, and look something like that. I know it's too much, but let's have a look at it. So I'm going to copy my union, cross my fingers we don't get an error. Where is our injection? So this is our injection point. Remove all that and do space, paste our payload, and do enter. We do have a problem. Incorrect parameters in the call native concat. Let me see what I did wrong. So perhaps I need to quote all this. Let me have a look. Let me see. Or before I do that, do this, use single quotes. If it fails, of course, I can always wait. There was a problem here. So before I do anything, we didn't put a comma. So we missed a comma over here. So let's see. That was maybe the mistake. Let's try that. Excuse me. If that doesn't work, see if we can quote it as well. So 2 space paste that, enter. We have a syntax error. Let's see. Near ID equals concat. So let's see if we can quote this. Excuse me. Let me use single quotes. Try it again. All right, so this definitely means I have to quote my columns if I'm not wrong. Do you have an example here? Let me see. Yeah, I do need to quote all of them. So that's definitely where I went wrong. So all of my tables here, my columns, I have to quote them. So this needs to work. So let's see this. Excuse me. Copy my payload as it is, go back and see if we can put this to work. And there we go. Paste it and perfect. We have it working. So we have a look and wait, what do we have? Wait, this is not what we expected. We do have a mistake here. Let me see. Table name, table schema. So something again, something we missed here. Okay, let me remove this. fancy things I added. Can fix them later on. Oops, let me copy this. So this one worked, but I'm trying to figure out why didn't it accept my separators? So what am I doing wrong? So let me try with double quotes. So excuse me, I try this very first, or I can just do it on on the on the URL before I just get too tired with this. So I'm gonna do double quote. If this will work. Yeah, double quote work. Perfect. So there we go. I was using double quote, single quotes failed, so double quotes. So this will happen. I mean, this will happen. So you'll have to be prepared for this kind of errors. So there we go. We've done a good job. So here we go. We do have database called photoblog. There's a table called categories, and categories has a column called ID, title. Then we have another one called table called pictures. It has ID, title, image, and cut. Now, this is more interesting. We have a table called users and a photo blog database, and the column is ID, column login, another column password. So here you know what to do, guys. We're gonna try and see if we can select ID, login, and password from users because we are in the current database is photo blog. So if we add another DB and you have permission to it, you can modify the query to suit your case. So for us, we started small and we're going bigger. Let's see. So we know we can try and select ID. What else did we see? ID, username, password. ID, username, and password. I hope I didn't put any typo there. Very well. Look at this. What do we need to do? Concatenate this into one column. ID, we had some errors there. Let me check and make sure I'm doing correctly. We don't need to quote that. Let me not repeat the mistakes. The only thing we need to quote is our separators so that we can know what we've picked. So let's do that, comma, and we are fine. And once we do this, select that, we know we're gonna do this from users. If I'm not wrong, counter check. Yep, the table is called users. So we want to pick the ID, login, and password from table users, and the payload will look something like this. And we know we have to insert it here. So let's do that. So our payload will be something like union, select, whatever it's here. So we're just gonna add 1, comma. This will be our 2. Then we've done that, comma 3, comma 4 from users, space, dash, dash, and our fingers are crossed that this doesn't throw any error. And here we go. Excuse me. We copy that, go back and check. Do we have anything that we can pull? So what did I miss? You don't select. Let's see what I did wrong. Let's go back and check. Union select 1 concat ID username password 3-4 from users. Let me copy and check again. What did I do wrong? If you can spot the error, please let me know. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 users. So username in field. So username is what's giving us errors. What did I miss there? Was it a typo? Supposed to be login. You guys, you let me suffer. So I did a typo. It's not supposed to be username, it's supposed to be login. Oh, that was my bad. Let's see if this will work. Go back, and here we go. Let's check. And good, we have admin, and we do have a funny looking string over here. So probably this is hash password. We can get this. So you can use Ashka to try and crack it for you. But for us, the first easy way to look is crack station. Crackstation.net. We test it, see if this is anywhere available. Crack, oh, sorry. Test the hash first. We crack. And yeah, we got the password is funny looking passwords in lead form. And here we go. Go back. Our blog. You remember we had the admin page. And if you're keen again, we got the username is admin and the password is this one, which we've cracked. We do admin, then the password, and we log in. So here we go. Interesting one. So if you want to play around with this lab, I do invite you to check Pentester Lab. They do offer nice labs which can help you learn more of this. So I picked this. It's one of all the challenges they had. It's a very interesting challenge to overlook it. And so this does not end here. You can try and see if you can add a malicious PHP like web shell. So there's add file. You can choose a file, see if you can add it to the the website, and see if you get like a user access, or rather a low level shell. In this case, it would be like I think um, Apache user or www data user. Then you need to break to root and things of this sort. So like a CTF kind of thingy. But you get the point. So this is basically what I wanted to show, guys. I mean, it was an impromptu call. I had to come in for my friend Michael. And of course, I'll be a guest, hopefully. I'll join you again and see if we can do more interesting challenges together. And so, like whatever I've shared today, I'll leave this with with Michael, and you'll be able to like put this on your VirtualBox and play around with it and things of the sort. So very well. Think that's the end of the presentation, unless you have any questions, guys. I'm on the chat. If you have any question, you can drop them there. That's what I want to show us. That's how you do like a manual injection. And to summarize, we started off with ways to like extend your attack surface. Then after extending your attack surface, what to look for whenever you want to try and test this. So that's it. And I think guys can have a wonderful evening. So over to you, Michael, if you're in here. So I think if Michael is busy, is not in the call. I think guys can leave. That's it. If there's anything else, I know he'll be able to communicate. And sorry, I'm kind of a little bit under the weather, but I hope guys caught something at least from the short presentation we had. Sure, see you around, and looking forward to having another session.